rolling. We're rolling. So just to get, we're cracking up a little bit here to give everybody a little bit of behind the scenes. We're talking on a golf podcast about Snoop Dogg and Mike Tyson and how intelligent they are. So that will kick off this show. And if you're wondering what the hell we were talking about, you're going to have to listen to the whole thing because I'm sure we'll get into it some more. But very happy to have two exceptional performance coaches, Stuart Morgan and Iain Highfield, both past guests on. And guys, welcome back from all parts of the world.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, mate. Appreciate it.
This is the new one, Pete, as well. It's like a double episode, isn't it, in one that you said?
Yeah, because yours is, well, Iain was one of the first ones to come on. He came on when I had no clue what I was doing, and I don't think I'd know a hell of a lot more now. It's not like I can go to a performance coach for a podcast unless someone has a direct line to Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss. I can. But and I think yours is coming out Sunday. I've done so many. I lost track of who's in queue and who I'm doing and editing and all that stuff. I think yours will be out Sunday morning.
Well, there's been some serious upgrades. Like, I don't even know what's going on this screen now, but I can see like cameras and voice recorders. You've got branded hat on. You got the Beats headphones or whatever they are. I feel like an amateur, Stu, right now.
I'm moving up. Well, this is the only headphones I know because I'm afraid to use the iPod headphones because it's got that speaker in it. I don't know if it'll go into that speaker or this speaker. I don't. It might look impressive, but I have no clue.
Not even
every time I hit record, I'm just hoping that this thing comes out, and I don't sleep at night because I'm like, well, I hope it uploads and you can hear what the hell we were talking about. So anyone out there who's been thinking of starting a podcast, if you view mine as successful, because I think you guys are the 71st or 2nd episode, it's a couple years. Yeah, I still have no idea what I'm doing. It's just like, okay, screw it. Let's jump in. It's fun. I get to talk to experts like you guys. And if you look at my list, I mean, how much would it cost somebody to go to continuing education seminar with some of the people I've had on here, right? So it's a huge learning experience, which is the whole purpose of what the Golf 360 was. But you guys are great. I love talking to you guys. I always learn something new. But I actually, because it's such news, and I like to hear you guys being Europeans. And I like to hear different perspectives on what's a hot topic today in golf that might be not so much on golf instruction and performance, but what you guys might think of that LIV Golf Tour and what's been happening.
I'll let Stu coaches good players that can probably play on that, so I'll let him answer that question.
Right, and I'm not trying to get you to name players or what they're. I'm just looking for what your guys' opinion is because, I mean, I'll give you mine real quick. I mean, I think it's. Brandel Chambly is obviously the anti-LIV. He is the beacon of the anti, and I can see his argument in some respects, but I also can see, look, if there's going to be competition, I'm all for it because that will make the PGA Tour improve what they put out there and what their product is. But I'm sure there's arguments both ways. I really don't have a dog in the fight. I will watch probably the first couple events, but again, as you guys growing up and being from Europe and I'm just curious to see what a perspective is from somebody outside the U.S.
For me, I think the question comes from, like, I mean, I saw the stuff that Brandel put out as well, and you're like, well, yeah, but what's it kind of connected to? Like, what's the real problem here? You know, where is the underlying problem? Because I saw a brilliant tweet from a good friend of mine, Ian Finnis, who caddies for Tommy Fleetwood, and he was like, well, he has a boy and a girl, right? Like his son and daughter. And he's like, how can I tell my daughter that it's actually okay to go and play in Saudi and you know, be part of the Amrico series, but then I turn to my boy and go, yeah, but it's not okay for you to go and play as part of that LIV Tour, right? LIV Golf, because it's Saudi funded. And I just think there's stuff that we don't know, right? And that stuff's coming out into the forefront of the media and whatnot. But there's always an ulterior motive with these things, Pete, and that's where, and we just don't know that. You know, that's the thing. We see like the top level stuff that kind of comes out, but what's the real reason behind why there's such a pushback on this? And yet, like Westy said, Formula One goes there. You know, Newcastle United are owned by people from Saudi Arabia. You know, there's multiple different sports have gone there. So there's got to be something else going on that we just don't know about, because otherwise it's just another competitive arena that's in a different format that people can either choose to play in and people can choose to watch or not. It's I try and stay out of the political element of it, in the sense of like, I just try and understand. I was at the Belfry last week at the British Masters, and Westy saying, well, if somebody in your job gives you the opportunity of a pay rise, what he's a sole contractor, right? He's a self-employed individual. Yeah, he might be a very wealthy self-employed individual, but does that make any difference? I don't know.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pete.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Ian.
I think like it's kind of cool how we started this podcast. We're talking about your podcast, and you do it to learn, and you're just doing this, right? Like, it's fun. Like, we're gonna have a great time. I'm on this podcast right now because I know both of you guys personally. I'll have a lot of fun, and I really love to listen to Stu talk about performance. So that's why I'm here, right? They're all internal motivators. So when I look, and I loved what Rory said. Rory said, I have way more money than I had 7 to 10 years ago, and I still go in the same 4 rooms of my house. I think someone else said, when I grew up, I didn't dream of holding a putt to win on the LIV Tour. I dreamed of doing it to win a PGA event or the Masters. So that's great, right? If you're intrinsically motivated to be on the PGA Tour, and that's your boyhood dream, and that's your opinion, then you should stay. And you're right. And if you're at Westwood's point of his career, or maybe like someone like a Ricky Fowler, where it's not quite going.
I mean, you just don't know, do you? I mean, it's like,
no, Ricky Fowler, I'd be adios amigo. Let's go. I'm playing on this tour. Let's freaking make that cash register sing again, because I'm not having the best time with what I'm doing now. And Westwood's not got as many years left as some others, and you might want to make the cash register sing. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know your personal circumstances. I don't know your motivators. And what I don't like about, say, what Randall's doing is he believes he's right. But everyone's personal position is different, and everyone's beliefs is different. So, I think you're empowered to make your own choice. I can't imagine Brooks Koepka will go. I can't imagine Rory will go, and that's cool. And I can imagine Lee Westwood would go. And if I was Ricky Fowler, I'd definitely go. So that's my opinion on it.
But Brandle's bringing stuff into it that he probably doesn't know enough about, as well.
I would agree.
He's bringing politics in, and the whole element of trying to understand, like, throwing really, really like poor stuff in there of like, the rulers of like Saudi Arabia and what they do and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, but is that really anything to do with sport and whatnot? And he's just putting that in there because he has some sort of, I don't know, like,
I think that's his job.
He wants some controversy of like, like Piers Morgan, right? Piers Morgan starts to cause up loads and loads of shit of like a number of different things. Why? Because he wants traction.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, I don't get me wrong. I appreciate Brandel Chambly because he's not cookie cutter. I always have said to my friends, I like listen. I'll tune in to listen to Brandel. Johnny Miller I used to tune and listen to. Love, you could, half the time you love him, half you hate him. Dick Vitale in basketball. I don't know if you guys remember him.
No.
He was an announcer of mostly college basketball, but he was not cookie cutter by any means. He was extremely unique, and I think that each industry needs somebody like that to kind of give a different perspective. But when Brandel starts getting into, the journalism thing and they murder journalists, it's like, well, how many journalists a year disappear in Mexico? Or how many journalists a year disappear in China? So I appreciate what Brandel says, but I think he gets off of some topics or makes arguments that are not very strong, that have happened much worse in other areas. And if you're going to, if China were to start a tour, I don't buy into the argument against him that, well, China does this, and this. Like, okay, but there's like 1 or 2 tournaments a year there. The same way there were 1 or 2 tournaments in Saudi that some players used to go to. And to his credit, he was anti them going a couple of years ago. And I mean, they had a round table. And I remember watching it on the Golf Channel where he said that they should not go to this. and here's why. So he has always at least held his position. But I think some of his supporting evidence or proof, whatever you want to call it, of that position doesn't quite hold up to scrutiny of it, more in-depth knowledge of what's going on around.
Yeah. So and let's look at it, right? So in the last 2-3 years, PGA Tour players have asked for releases to go and play the Saudi event, which was then on the European Tour, and were granted releases, right? So what's the reason for them going to play that, right? They're not going all the way across the other side of the world for just to peg it up and just play for.
They're not going from a South Florida beach to go to a Saudi Arabian
play for a
beach,
tournament, right? I mean, they're going there because they get a very, very good fee to go and play there. So what's the difference between that and now all of a sudden being turned down releases to go and play in this first event that's coming up near London?
Yeah, it's a lot of crazy stuff. And the PGA Tour, it's almost that their actions seem like they're nervous about it, like this tour is going to take over the world. And if I had to guess or place a bet, I would say Norman's underlying reason to do this. Remember, he goes back to wanting to start a world tour.
Yeah,
and
that was back in the 90s, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, correct. And I think that's where he started the world golf events, and I don't think he'll ever forgive Tim Fincham for chastising
I agree
him
with
and
that.
taking the idea.
I think he has an ulterior motive there, right?
Norman has an ulterior motive. Yes. So I would, if he came on, I would ask him that question: is there an ulterior motive outside of providing a difference, a place for players to play, and changing things up to make it easier for them to so-called, the lure is you can make the money and you can be back to your family and you're going to play in less time. You got to have more time off the golf course and so on. So I'm not buying that's the motive that they're doing this for.
And you see a pattern. I mean, we don't know the fields and whatnot, but the ones that like sway, like Sergio had like on-course Tourette's the other day, didn't he? With like, with the camera and stuff. It's like, and so you're thinking, he's already on a flight over to London to play in this event. We don't know that, but you see maybe people swaying towards this, that, like you said, at the latter part of their career. They know, at the end of the day, they're playing for $25 million per event, right? Versus,
Ian brought up a very good point. Is people growing up, when they practicing or playing with their friends, and they're saying that they have a 6-foot putt, it's for the British Open or the Masters, the U.S. Open, or whatever tournament. It's not for the LIV. Now, the LIV might develop that, and that's going to be a very difficult thing because that only comes through time. But if that's the dream of many a player who wish to play on the grandest stages in golf, DP Tour, PGA Tour, then I think that they're going to have a very hard time gathering people who have that passion. And the passion is what's going to draw the people in, I think, because players will do things, as you guys know, as performance coaches, top level, that emotions and passion or something inside will drive you to do things that you never thought possible, right? So if that element is missing from this tour, which on the front side it looks like it is, then how are they ever going to, number one, attract the people who would bring that, and number two, then how are you going to get that there?
Something just struck me, and I can't remember who this was, but there was a player on the PGA Tour. It came out a while back, and I read the whole article, and he was talking about how he was an alcoholic on the tour, and he got zero support. And Mickelson then tweeted out and was very, very critical. And there's been a couple of other instances where players have questioned what the PGA Tour is to its members beyond money and beyond organizing the sport. And, Pete, you worked at IJGA. Stu, you ran the academy. I run KOHR Golf Academy. I've been at many other junior academies. I've worked in businesses. We've all had jobs, right? Why do you stay at a job? There is evidence-based research that it's not all about what you get paid. You need to feel part of something. You need to feel empowered. Yes. You need to feel innovation. You need to feel like you're forming the culture. You need to feel gratitude.
Like you're contributing and like you're growing.
So maybe, right. If people leave jobs, well-paid jobs, because they don't feel like the culture is there, maybe there's not the other kind of support on the PGA Tour for some of these players beyond finances. I know the pensions are amazing and stuff like that. Maybe that could be a reason why people are a bit restless. Again, pure speculation. I'm just putting dots together with my life experiences and things that I've read. So I think, yes, the attraction, the pull of the LIV Tour might not be there based on what you've just said, but maybe there is some push away from the PGA Tour because they're not looking after the players, or they don't have the players union doesn't have as much power or influence as maybe it needs to have. I don't know.
It's an interesting dynamic. I find it very curious. I mean, a lot of my friends are saying, "Screw it, I'm not watching that thing. I'm not going to pay attention to it." As a golf fan, I'm going to watch at least some of it because I'm curious to see what they do, how it plays out. What do they do well? What do they not do well? But it'll be interesting. I mean, it's coming up in what, a couple weeks is the first event.
But again, if you like have people with like families and whatnot, and you can go, do you know what? There's no cut. There's 20. There's 25 million an event. I'm going to play between 8 and 14 events per year, depending on what their schedule is going to be. They get to spend more time at home. I'm later on in my career. I get it, right? I absolutely get that.
It makes total sense.
Yeah. If I'm a young whippersnapper getting out on tour and I'm like thrust into like win majors and win the Grand Slam or get into World Golf Hall of Fame, I probably don't get it. It's like it's just different for different people, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Golf Digest last night had a post about something the tour did with incoming college golfers. You know how they have that, I guess they're ranking the college golfers, and they have some sort of status on the Korn Ferry here, that there was some restriction they put on any golfers coming out of college in the LIV Tour. And I thought that was a pretty bold step, right? That was exactly my reaction. I'm like, wow, this is really going to get intense.
I think often and this is something I've complained a little bit about, like, you have some great kids coming out of college, and then like maybe Monty turns up for one event on the all-time, uses his all-time money list. And I'm like, that's stifling someone's career. Maybe this LIV Tour cleans a little bit of that up. Maybe it gives some opportunity for these younger whippersnappers to have more starts and get more sponsors exemptions and get into events more. I don't know. Maybe it could end up being a good thing,
It gives them a place to play.
Yeah.
Right? Which is always an opportunity. When you're at that level, I remember being not out of college. It took me a few more years to get ready to play at that level, but I was anxious to play, and it didn't matter where I played. I just wanted to play tour golf. If it was Korn Ferry, now back then you had Asia, Hooters, Korn Ferry. Nobody from here really went to Europe to try to qualify. It was too big a drastic difference, which is odd, being that some of the guys I knew went to Asia. Like, well, what the hell are you going that way for? I mean, Europe's a hell of a lot closer. At least you speak the language. But yeah, guys, and even, well, I don't know, the girls are doing, but I know guys, they're just looking for somewhere to play. They're itching to play. They want to make their mark in the world, show everybody what they have. And to them, I don't think it matters if it's XYZ Tour, PGA Tour, DP Tour. Throw whatever acronym you want. They just want to.
And that's the other thing, is that obviously LIV Tour also own the Asian Tour, right? So it's like this next level down. So they've increased the funding and stuff like that in that. Potentially have stronger fields in that as well, like going down the road. And the world's big enough, right, to have different platforms for people to play on. I truly believe this. And at the moment, like, I was thinking the first LIV event, they don't have world ranking points and whatnot, so you can't, there's no like gain in that respect, but that'll only be a matter of time based on the fields that they get. But again, they also have the Asian Tour as well, and a good schedule there. So how can you just turn it down for people if you, like you said, coming out of college and whatnot, and you want to go and get some like tournament golf experience? How can you turn that down? In some respects.
The interesting thing to me is I watch the very anti anything live. It is mostly journalists or people from the Golf Channel or who were with the Golf Channel. So I don't know if there's some type of dynamic going on there or what the deal is, but it seems like a lot of the people, and Brandel and Eamon are the two leads on that cast. And then you can just follow each one as it goes down the
Yeah,
list.
but they just write for clicks now. That's the thing.
Seems
Clicks,
like
share, like, you know, it's not that I can't. I don't believe
Controversy, basically saying this is, this is what I disagree with, and putting it out there, and it annoys some people, and they get loads of traction on it, and that's what they live for, you know.
I just don't understand how one individual on something that, yes, it involves them in the industry, but Brandel's not going to go play on it. How you can have such strong opinions and tell people that they're wrong when you're not that person and you don't know their circumstances. How you can't, Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits, one that Speak to Understand. Like, I'm just happy to listen to everyone's opinion and be like, you know what, that makes sense. Or, you know what, that guy's just going for money. That's okay. If he's money motivated, he's money motivated. He's not going because he wants to build a legacy of majors and he's not as money driven as that person. That's great. That's really how I see it. I don't like how social media has become this place where you can tell someone that they're wrong, but in their world, they're right. They have a different view of the world. Like there's no debate. Brandel's a very articulate guy. There's no nice articulation. There's no healthy conversations like we're having now. It's like, you're wrong, I'm right. You suck, I don't. I'm like,
I don't know him personally. I've never talked to him, but I mean, he's obviously very well read and educated. But you're right. For his level of education, he seems to be going off on an emotional tangent to make his point. And he's backing it. I mean, he backs it up with some data that we talked about. I might believe, some of it I believe is not fully correct. But the fact that he has built this persona, so to speak, that he does his research and does his homework, but I think he's drifted into more the emotional aspect of his argument on this than he is on backing it up with actual empirical
but
data.
If you're looking for searching for confirmation bias based on that, you're literally going to go down the avenues of going, oh, I want to read that over there because that fits my bias and that's going to prove me right. I'm not going to go down there and listen to that because that's going to be conflicting to what my beliefs are. So I'm just going to bury my head about that, and that's in everything.
But Stu, don't you? I remember I was beginning to formulate my coaching opinion when around the time when I was at I'd formulated my coaching opinion and philosophy. I was really putting pen to paper around sort of being at the middle of my time at Bishopsgate. And I remember I saw a book. It was called The Sports Gene. Yeah. And I'm a big...
Epstein.
Yeah, David Epstein.
Got it right here.
It's a brilliant book. And I'm a big believer in the environment, right? I'm a dynamic systems theorist. Like I believe in ecological dynamics. I believe the power of the environment. My baby is going to be a Montessori baby. Like I don't believe in nature. I believe in nurture.
So you don't believe in a deterministic theory of like you must do this.
Correct. And I believe there's I'm never playing in the NBA, right? But still, LeBron James didn't have a genetic, I'm going to be a basketballer. There was a lot of other things that went in to baking that cake, if you like. So I always use the analogy of, Stu, if you go to Walmart and you buy all your ingredients from the Walmart discount aisle, and I go to Whole Foods and I buy all my ingredients from the top quality organic Whole Foods aisle, I have the best, in inverted commas, genetics. But guess what? My oven's broken, so your cake is better than mine. That's the power of the environment, right? So I believe when I saw that book, The Sports Gene, I was like, I've got to read that because that could prove me wrong. That I want to know what's in that book because it's going to challenge my beliefs. Yeah, that's it. And to some points it did, but some points
And that one?
I haven't read that one. Stu's read that.
That one's, yeah, there you go. Great minds do think alike, don't we?
But to my point, right, like you bring up that confirmation bias. Don't you think journalists, like how I form my coaching philosophy, and I know you are always looking to challenge yourself, don't you think journalists have a responsibility to read and break down and give time to the opposite end of the spectrum to actually try and remove their confirmation bias and challenge themselves?
Yeah, but why would they do that?
Because it leads to you being more well-rounded.
You need to be a certain person to be able to do that, right? So if you're happy, like for example, somebody sends me a message last week and saying, "Oh, have you heard the swing analysis done by such and such on Sky Sports about one of your players?" I was like, "No, I haven't heard that." So I watched it. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ! Where have they got this information from? For starters, he's a fantastic iron player, but he's on a rebuild. No, he's not. He's not on a rebuild at all. You know, so it's like all it. You know, what's that famous saying? If you only have a hammer, everything's a nail, right? It's that. It is literally that.
Yeah.
But I think it takes a pivotal moment in something, right, along this journey to end up making you go, holy shit, like I was wrong, you know? Like there needs to be some sort of like intervention here. I need to start, and that comes with anybody in this world that says, "Oh, this is exactly what you need." I'm like, you're talking bullshit, mate. Like you are absolutely talking bullshit. I can fix you in 5 minutes. It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And you have those filters up, but it's like that people hook onto that, don't they? And it's the same in anything that we do. It's like that absolute hook, and you go, yeah, just and you learn, right? You learn by experience and whatnot. Now, if somebody says, "Oh, this is exactly it. This is exactly the path you want to." I have all the answers for you, and I'm like going, "You are absolutely talking at your," because it's just not the case.
Yeah, it's not
because
that simple.
Like, well, if you're like so bloody clear on that, right? You have a system, right? And anything, I think Pete and I spoke about this the last time. If you have a system, that means everybody does it. But the moment one person doesn't do something within your system is absolutely flawed. So it just doesn't work. And this is what a lot of people do, you know. They have this, they lock on to these things of like, oh yeah, this is exactly it. This is exactly it. This is my pathway to stardom or whatever it is. And then somewhere down the journey they go, oh my God, like something has just like proved me completely wrong here.
Ian, you had talked about skill development and the variables that get incorporated into building the cake, so to speak. And before we came on, we were laughing our ass off. We were talking about, to give people some background on what the hell we were laughing at. We're talking about Snoop Dogg and Mike Tyson, who were on Joe Rogan's podcast, as being intellectuals. And nobody would have ever guessed those two now, 25, 35 years ago, would have been intellectuals, but something along their life's journey guided them into that, because you do not get to the level of success at any endeavor the way that those two have, without having some. And I mean, and they came from hardcore ghetto. It's not like they had every opportunity in the world to go to the best schooling, but somehow, some way, they found a way to learn what was required.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. That dealing with adversity as a child is a big time success maker. And then I think as well, like when I look and I like, again, to Stu's point, if I said to my dad, "Hey dad, you know what I think? I think Mike Tyson and Snoop Dogg are geniuses," he'd say, "No, they're not. No, they're not." And he wouldn't even be willing to like listen to me or but
end the conversation.
yeah, but my definition of a genius isn't someone that can, like, on Goodwill Hunting, do all the maths puzzles. Like, I believe Mike Tyson's, the way he is introspective and the self-awareness that he has about who he is and his life and what he did, listening to him articulate that is absolutely astonishing to me. I see genius in that level of self-awareness. And then Snoop Dogg's understanding of how to influence people, and how can you be relevant for so long and have so many businesses and understand the business world and just influence behavior in multiple different areas and articulate things the way he does and his philosophy on life.
Cross culturally too. It's not just one culture, it's cross cultures.
But you talked about there about environment. Like he was around at the right time of the right environment, right? So, you know, if he's around at a different time, then you may never have heard of him, you know, but
timing is a huge
and that's just complete luck in a lot of respects, right? It's either luck in the sense of you just fall into it, or you're an opportunist where you see something to kind of like change in and you go into that. But when Snoop Dogg
you know what,
is around, you know, the NWA, for example, and you know, getting influenced by Dre, and you know, these are like absolute pioneers, right? In what they're doing, and he was at the forefront of that, right? And he had some hardship along the way as well, like within that environment.
And it's interesting to see how his kids will turn out, because I know one of his kids tried to play football. I think he had like a little nephew or cousin or something that was Little Bow Wow, the rapper, and they don't seem to have their dad or their uncles or whatever, like, drive and desire and intellect, because obviously the environments that they've grown up in probably didn't create the same level of internal motivation and ability to deal with adversity that, well, not probably, definitely didn't create that he had. So yeah, I think it's interesting looking at those guys. You know, like, I actually would prefer to listen to Mike Tyson and challenge my life view and my coaching philosophy than read an article on golf coaching. I think that makes me a better coach, understanding a lot of that and the power of the environment and just how successful people live their life and how they organize their thoughts. I want to help kids that I work with develop some of those successful traits more than develop their golf swing.
But the danger with that though is that when we listen to these people and whatnot, we're like going, "Oh yeah, that fits so much within my bias." That's not what we're telling ourselves. But it's like, that's so me. That's like fits so. And we got to be careful of that as well, because we've got to be understanding that, you know, the moment we attach on to something that fits into our bias, somebody somewhere down the line is going to prove you wrong. It's as simple as that. So if you can stay completely neutral to the element, and part of it is the world we live in. If you don't have some form of like funky system or something that you're kind of doing or selling or whatnot, it seems to like not even be, it's not relevant, you know? So you have to look at it and go, okay, well, every person that comes through my door, I actually don't know what I'm going to do with that person. I don't know what their situations are. I don't know anything.
Yeah. So like,
Every day I wake up, it's like a brand new beginning. I just don't know.
That's interesting because I had Dr. Michael Hollis is a world-renowned naturopath, and I had him on a couple times. And one of the questions I asked him was, "How much water should you drink a day? Is it your body weight in ounces? Is it half your body weight? What is it?" And he says, "No, none of that's true." And I'm kind of floored because that's what everyone keeps promoting, regardless of what trainer or whoever you're following on social media or talk to. And he said, it just depends. You don't know until you test somebody. Like what we do, someone comes out for a lesson, or you usually have a questionnaire or a form, or you put them through some measurements, and you have to find out what they can do, where they are, what they might be capable of doing before you try to put them into any type of system that might hinder them. It might help them, but it also might hinder them. You just don't know until you have some information. To your point, when someone walks in, you don't know what you're going
But
to do.
that takes a massive amount of like self-awareness in the standpoint of like, and confidence in what you do to do that.
And that takes time. You don't get to that level without making mistakes and learning a lot of different avenues and tangents that you can go to if you think it's needed.
Because I will honestly say that every person that's ever come to me to work with me is not turning around and going, dude, I won 3 majors. I am 10th in the world. I'm absolutely flying, but I want to get better. That is never ever happened, right? There's either some absolute shit has hit the fan where they're going, oh my god, I'm literally like I've missed 10 cuts in a row. I've done this. I'm in dire straits. So they're coming to me like searching for something, right? To seek out something. And when I turn around to them and go, I don't have any exacts for you. I don't know, right? That to them is like, oh my god, like you don't have any exact things that can help me do this. I'm like, no, I don't. But somewhere along the line, we're going to figure that out.
You're going to find it. Yeah, that's the whole point.
But the thing is, their viewpoint is he has the answers. I don't have the answers. They have the answers inside of them. I need to somehow find a way of unlocking those answers.
yeah, I agree 100% with that. Like that is spot on to what a coach does. There's a couple of metaphoric stories that I love that I'll always share with my kids, that highlight that they have everything they need inside them. It's got to be unlocked, and it's going to take time. And I heard Chris Como. I always felt like I did a lot of trial and error in my coaching. And I was unsure, like, is this a good thing? Like, I don't really know. I'm going to try this. It might not work. And I'm going to try this, and it might not work. And I try this, and we get some results. It will go to this path or this path. And then, I respect Chris Como as a golf coach. He's achieved a lot. He's very well read. And I remember I was watching something or reading something from him, and he was like, yeah, I'm very heavily dependent on trial and error. And I was like, oh, and this was like earlier on in my career. And I was like, oh, okay, it is okay to not have all the answers, and you've got to figure things out, and you've got to take time. So yeah, I 100% agree with that.
It's like exploration, right? It's having space to explore what's like this might, the journey you're down right now might be right, might be not. We just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we can measure with all the technology in the world today, whether it's a golf swing, I guess some of the mental aspects you can measure. But Ian, to your example of baking a cake, you're not going to use the same recipe in the UK, where you guys are from, as you would in South Florida. You got different humidity, you got different temperature, you got all these things. And you take a master baker, they know how to modify the recipe, the trial and error that you're discussing, to make that cake come out exactly
I think
perfect.
I think like
right?
Yeah.
But they didn't learn that. They didn't learn that.
Excuse me, 1 second.
To your point, coming out of the womb, right? They weren't born with it.
Yeah.
They learned that somewhere along the
So
way.
I think more to like to Stu, everyone comes to you and they are different ingredients.
Yes.
So like the guy from England is this ingredient, the guy from South Florida has these ingredients, and I work with a lot of young Indian kids at the minute, junior golfers. The culture there and it's very, very different to the UK. So I feel like it's not necessarily tampering with the ingredients, it's which oven are you going to put them in. That's me. Like, I like to manipulate the environment. That's where I'm not a direct instructor. I'm a big believer that if I manipulate the environment, then the brain and the body is going to respond to that environment. So I've got all these people that are different types of ingredients. And for me, I'm not searching for different ingredients that I'm going to give them. I'm looking at which oven is best to bring the most out of those ingredients.
Yeah. What temperature is the oven going to be? Is it going to be 375? Is it going to be 390?
Yeah.
You know,
Just very
based off the environment.
Yeah. Very, very different. And I don't, more and more I coach, I know less and less. The more and more I speak to Stu, he challenges me all the time. And I'm like, okay, back to the drawing board. And I think that's a good thing. But also, the more and more I coach, I've started to say to a few players, I don't think I'm necessarily right for you because this is how I go about things. You might want to look at the more traditional sports psychologist where you're given a little more instruction and you follow that and you apply that, as opposed to me where I'm going to put you more on a journey of self-discovery and, you know, gameplay and things like that. That what I do, I don't believe is right for everyone. It's just how I do it. I'm actually talking with Stu more about, based on some of his experiences, about how I can, these people that maybe I'm not right for, how can I tailor my style of coaching to be more in line with what that personality type, etc., might need. But I'm not.
What would be an example? Because you do a ton of work with juniors, high level juniors, and Stu works a lot with world class players.
Yeah.
Right? So what for each of you, the question would be, what would be give me an example of what you either have done or what you would do to a student who's struggling, and you pick the thing that they're struggling with, and then what you implement so that they can improve at that. Be it Ian, you can talk about the juniors, and Stu, you can talk about the world class players.
Stu, you want to?
So someone listening has an idea of. I mean, I know what you're talking about, but they might not know, because you mentioned how you do things different than the traditional coaching or psychology. So Ian, what would it be for juniors? An example of what you do.
So look, someone's going to pay me some money, so I have a framework, right? So the first time is an all parent and child, and if it's a college player or a younger pro, maybe not the parents, but in general, most of the time, always a big team meeting, always the parents. The parents have to read my research-based organized sports guide. The child has to fill out a questionnaire. We have a big talk, and I share my philosophy, and I want to make sure that everyone is okay with the things that I'm going to do. I'm not going to call them. They have to call me. That shows the level of motivation. The traffic has to come this way. I'm not responsible for booking the sessions. I want more talk about processes. I want more praise for effort. We want to try and disconnect a bit with the score. Just all general education. Just as Stu would point out, that's in line with my biases and with my reading and with my life experiences. But it definitely has helped some people. So we would do that. And then I would do the more of a goal setting session. During the goal setting session, we would set some, what do you want to achieve? How do you want to achieve it? And why do you want it? So we're really the world in general is very outcome orientated. So most of my students, they can articulate what they want. They don't really know how they're going to get it, or if they do, it's not detailed enough, and they really don't know why they want it. So then I want to help them build and focus on processes, on how they're going to get this and why they want it. And then there'll be some interchange. I'll look at stats if they've got it. I'll do at least 30 minutes, sometimes up to 2-3 hours talking about events and just collecting information. They'll send me videos of themselves playing on the golf course, talking routines out loud. I'll send them some games to play, some tasks. I'll look at all of that. And then I'll start to build practice challenges for the golf course, practice challenges for the golf range. And I'll start to build personal challenges. Like we make it games, like little check sheets of games they have to play where they may have to meditate or they have to write down their thoughts, mini meditations, and just all of these things that ultimately lead to more journaling, more introspection, more mini meditations. And then I really just try and put constraints into their personal life and into their golf practice that will develop the agreed upon behaviors that we need to emerge. And then when they go play, I'll look at stats. I'll reconsider if I need to change these constraints based on the stats and based on conversations I have with them. So I'm really trying from afar to help them. And a lot of the time I'll go in person and I'll spend a day or a day and a half with them and we'll do this boot camp. And really that's where we make a lot of cool breakthroughs. But yeah, ultimately, I'm trying to help them disconnect a little bit with the outcome and the ego. I'm trying to educate their parents. And then I'm trying to get them to be process focused when they play golf. And I'm trying to get them to practice in a way that allows them to make mistakes in practice, make practice harder and more demanding, allows them to make mistakes. And then we can talk about the emotional and mental side that arose from those mistakes, and then we can address them before tournaments. I guess that would be, I've never actually really thought about it like that from start to finish. I've got my manuals and stuff, but that would be what I would be looking at doing.
Stu, how would that differ from you, what you do with world-class players?
I think the margins are finer. I think that it starts there. Also, the mindful element of like at what cost, right? In the sense of if you're trying to make some sort of intervention with a player, there's always going to be a cost, right? So it's like, what's the trade-off in there? But for me, I would always start out. This is where you are right now. This is where we're starting from. Where do you want to be? I'm not a huge fan of specific goals. I'm not. I would, and there's some evidence to say I want some Everest goals from a motivational standpoint. From something that's going to really kind of challenge that individual, and like they might never reach it, Pete, but at least it gets them out of bed and they're kind of excited to go and to do something. Mm-hmm. And then I start to really go into, I have a number of, so I have like different calls, right? So I'll go do this questionnaire. I need to speak to your manager. I need to speak to your caddy. I need to speak to your other coaches and stuff like that. And then I end up like formulating this whole thing. And my strength, I think, in the industry is I'm able to cut through most of the bullshit and figure out real kind of like clear, simple things for the individual. Like Ian would call that chunking, right? From being in the environment for such a long time, where I'm able just to like take information that other people are not seeing and chunk it into helping that player. And then, when it comes to like actual, practical elements, what are we wanting? What are the key principles of the sport that you play in? So in golf, unfortunately, it is an outcome-based sport. as much as we don't want to think of it that way. It's a score related. You shoot the lowest score for 72 holes, you're going to win the golf tournament, right? So there's no system to that. You can do that in whatever way you want to do it. And that's really my job. What is the best way for you to do that? And that then starts to formulate the practice. Is like, okay, for you to do this, what are your key principles within the sport that are going to enable you to do that? And then we chop it down into practice design to actually, I would say, try to implicitly do this. Because the one thing I found with elite performers, if you start to question them too much about what they do, they haven't got a clue. And that's what makes them so good.
Right. They're able to do it without everything.
And the danger is that, again, at what cost? If you start trying to unpack this too much with them, right? Good and bad, right? Because they go, so the bad stuff, they're like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'll get on to the next day and go with it. And you start trying to unpack that, you're embedding shit in there that just doesn't need to be embedded. And there are a couple of journeys that I've been on with. My biggest thing is I look at that individual in front of me and go, what does this individual need? And if I can drag something from somewhere from my reading, that's why I read a lot, and that's why I study a lot, and that's why I speak to a load of people. I actually don't care whether it's right or wrong. If it's right for that individual, then it's right. So if people feel right,
that's what I love. That's what I love about. Sorry.
If people turn around to me and go, yeah, but there's no empirical evidence to that, I just go, I don't give a shit. It worked for that guy,
works.
Right? Or worked for that lady.
There's a reason.
I don't
We
give a
just
shit
don't know
what
why.
you say.
And that's what I love about Stu and why I spend time with him. He's not in the business of being right or wrong. He's in the business of influencing behavior. And I believe the same about me. Like, I look sometimes at these Facebook forums and I post a video and I'm posting it because it helped this player. And I think it could potentially help other players in a similar position. And some of the abuse that I'll get is insane. And I'm like, dude, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not even trying to be right. Like, if you get a player that is a 15-year-old girl whose dad is a little intense and she panics when she's going down the stretch, look, maybe this is the solution. Just trying to help you out. Like, not trying to be right, not trying to be wrong. But in this instance, I influence this person's behavior. As coaches, we want to influence behaviors. So it just came to my mind, the Real Madrid game. Maybe one of the greatest comebacks of all time in the Champions League. And the Real Madrid manager calls his players over and says, what do you guys, senior players, 3 senior players, what do you guys think we should do? They gave him the information. They did it. They're in the Champions League final. He wasn't in the business of being right or wrong. He was in the business of influencing his team's behavior. Absolutely brilliant coaching. By giving up power, by giving up ego, and involving his team, what they did to Manchester City will go down in history. And that's what I see with Stu, and that's what I'm trying to be a bit more like disconnecting from the ego. I'm not trying to prove a philosophy. I'm not trying to sell a product. This person in front of me, I want to influence their behavior. How best do I do it?
But the other thing as well, Pete, like I'm not afraid to calling fuckers out, like in the sense of, like, if we're in a team meeting and just turning around going, but that has no validity. Like, what you're saying there, like, you're fucking shitting your pants, you're shitting your pants, you're shitting your pants, I'm shitting my pants, right? So what can we do to stop fucking shitting our pants and leaning on that guy that's fucking in the arena hitting the fucking golf shot? Because our behaviors, because we're shitting ourselves, are influencing him. So if you're fucking shit, what are you shitting your pants about? Like, I'm not shitting my pants. Yes, you fucking are. You are shitting your pants. And you're shitting your pants because you're not going to be in the limelight, right?
But do you see that at the tour level?
Oh,
where,
man.
where
It's
coaches
fucking...
have obviously achieved, so there is an ego that might get in the way
Oh,
of
man,
the development of the
I
player?
need to have my badges. I need to be fucking taking my selfies on the range like this. Like, going, I'm at this event. I'm behind the ropes, but I'm taking just so you can think that I'm on the range like this. It's bollocks.
I don't go, Pete. I don't go to many tour events, so I still do that shit when I go. I just want you to know that, all right?
I mean,
Get like 2 a year. Not like it gets boring when you do 12 a year.
but I take like an example now.
It's like putting your socks on in the morning.
We're at DP World last year, right? So we go play a practice round, 9 holes, 3 of us, or 3 players, and I'm just like tagging along. And one of the players stands on the tee and rips it right down the fit, like rips it, and everybody's gone woo! Like, what has happened there? Like, something different has gone on here. And I've asked him, I said, so what's going on? He goes, I changed coaches, you've done this, I've gained like 15 to 20 yards of my irons. He goes, it's good, isn't it? I said, yeah, but at what cost? And he went, what? I said, at what cost? He goes, what do you mean? I said, how's your caddy going to club you?
Mm-hmm.
So you're standing there, 150 over piss, right? Okay, am I going to wipe it short into the water here with my old movement, or am I going to pump it over the back of the green with my new one? What club is the caddy going to pull here?
So, and I love that.
After that, he's missed like 8 cuts in a row because the caddy was like really, really struggling, because sometimes he was like doing this, sometimes he was doing this, and it was just almost like bet the devil you know in some instances.
So, Pete, you asked the question earlier, which I think is a great question. Like, what's the difference between what Stu and I do? Because I think when we both explained it, there's a huge amount of similarities. And again, Stu was my boss at IJGA, and that was probably the time when I formulated my coaching identity more than any other with his help. So I'll sit with a parent. Parents like, it's getting worse. Like, score is not always an indicator of learning. And they're like, what? I'm like, score's not always an indicator of learning. And they're like, this. I'm like, look, here's his numbers. He's put on 15 yards. He's put on X amount of swing speed. He's in the gym, and he can now stop early extending. It's absolutely crushing the golf ball. But let's put his stats up. Oh, look, he's missing every green long. He's missing to back flags long. We can't get up and down. It's not good enough to get up and down from there. So you, as a team, we all agreed he needed to not early extend. He needed to strike the ball in the center of the face more, and he needed more speed. Congratulations, we succeeded. Now he needs to self-organize this skill, and we all need to shut the fuck up and let this kid take time to work out how he's going to manage these new skills on the golf course. We need to encourage process. We need to praise him for his efforts away, and eventually it will translate. But score...
But it won't, though. It might not.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that to the parents. I'll talk about that down the line.
Yeah, that's the danger of that. When you segment it to such a degree, it might not piece itself back together, right? It just might not. There's no evidence to suggest that that's what's going to happen.
Well, isn't that so? Where Ian says you got to let the kid sort it out, because he's going to. I mean, it's a natural process for animals, which we are, that nature will teach us how, and if we don't, we don't survive. We don't procreate, and that DNA structure is gone. But when they stumble, or they're not able to figure it out, or they make the same mistake repetitively, wouldn't that be the job as all of us as the coach to look at it and say, okay, here's what you need to do in this situation. So the next time you're in it, you have the ammunition to get through that fight.
Yeah, you can give them some processes for on course, and you can help them with practice games where, you know, I have a game called Flight Club where you have to take 2 extra clubs and you're not allowed to hit it out the back, and it's going to teach you the rules of the game are going to teach you to like hit chippy ones, or there's a plethora of things we can do. But Stu, and yeah,
I'm not in that world, right? I don't have that time. That's the big thing. Those guys are turning around to me and going, well, how is this going to improve my performance like next week?
So that was basically my question, Stu. You're half answering my question. Like, you say it might not translate. So I'm mainly junior and collegiate golfers, and it's more likely, especially with the junior, right? Majority of kids I work with, 16, 90 to 100% will go to college. Will it self-organize with them more so because of the stage of their life they're at and the time they have than the guys
not necessarily. It will self-organize potentially more because they have a less demanding tournament schedule, so they have more space to self-organize potentially. But the more I get into it, Pete, and the more I start obviously critically thinking about so many different things, is that when you start to understand behaviors, why would you do any mechanical work if you're not hitting to a number? Because the behavior of golf is you're hitting to numbers all the time. So why do we have to segment it, right? Why do we have to say, oh, we'll just do that and then we'll do that? Why? It doesn't work like that for me. So if we're looking at the behavior of the sport, right? These are the things that entail golf. This is what golf is. Okay? It's a game. It has an outcome. It has some rules of how you play the game. So if we keep those core components in, if you're seeing some form of technical intervention, keep them in it, because that's the environment they need to be in. And I keep having this, and I don't know whether it's actually, it was from getting a call with Ian the other day. I don't know whether we can segment learning and performance. I don't. Because it's all entwined. We're an absolute whole organism in what we're doing in that performance context. So how can we break that up? I just don't know.
It's a very interesting question. I do know from playing at a very high level that you would, at least me personally, but I talked to enough guys over the years I played that would do similar things. It's like you play one tournament, you make the cut, and maybe you don't play as well as you thought you should have, or you miss the cut by 1 or 2, and of course you're driving the next event, and you've got 7 to 10 hours to think of nothing else except how many strokes you could have saved. But if let's say you're going over the course of a month, and you realize, okay, my up and down percentage isn't what it needs to be. It's subpar. And then, so you start working on that a little bit more, after the rounds or practice rounds and so on. And pretty soon you notice that your short game improves, but then maybe your driver slips.
And that's it.
And it's like
right there.
And it's like this constant struggle that and I tell all the players I work with, I work with mostly college and early pro, and then your average everyday golfer. And I tell all of them, because they all need to hear it. You just get it through your head right now. You are never, you will have maybe one day a year where you hit it the way you want to. I actually had mine the other day. I posted on social media that I hit every shot the way I wanted to on the range. So I stopped. I'm like, unfortunately it was on the driving range that day, but it was such a nice day. I went out and hit balls, but I try to get through to them because they all want to think that they have to hit the ball perfect and chip and putt perfect to shoot the lowest scores they can. And maybe in their little world to shoot the scores that are somewhat out of their reach. If a 20 handicap wants to get to a 10, they're not used to shooting They're used to shooting 100. They're not used to shooting 80 or 85. And for a kid that's going from college who's used to shooting 72 or 73 sometimes, and maybe one under, to shoot 65 and 6 on a regular basis is somewhat out of their reach. But they think they need to be perfect to get to that, because that's the only thing they associate with shooting those scores. And I'm like, no, that's not it. You get better at all facets of your game, and you improve at all of them. And in X amount of time, you will look back and say, holy shit, I'm X amount stronger mentally. My driving stronger. My iron play, my whole game is one quarter of a stroke better than it was then. At that level, that's very big.
It's huge.
And many of them don't understand that. That's the biggest challenge I have with players.
And what you're saying there, so back in the winter after the Ryder Cup, I had a PJ Tour player reach out to me, and he goes, I just want to know what you do, and so on and so forth. So I went deep. I did an analysis on him, right? And, pulled out a number of different things, and then spoke to him and spoke to his swing coach about what he did and whatnot. And it's overly boxy, right, in the practice element, right? And there's only so much time in the day that you have, right, before you get to, cognitive load is just to the point where you cannot do anything. It's not worth doing anything more. You can do a little bit of that fatigue training, like a little bit. So I looked at all his data, and I had his team in front of me in my style, and it probably fucking alienated them because I didn't end up working with him in the end. But I said, they were like, oh yeah, I think he's got better. And I'm like, well, he hasn't got better. And they were like, what do you mean he hasn't got better? He's definitely got better, because I can prove this in his driving stats that he's got better. Yes, absolutely. But his total strokes gained, hasn't changed in 3 or 4 years. So actually, he's on a plateau. You've just moved the numbers. Mm-hmm. So he's got better there, but he's got worse there. So actually, the strokes gained total hasn't changed. So the reality is, why hasn't it changed? Because he's overworked in this area and underworked. And the reason he does that is because he blocks everything. It's like he segments it. Oh, I need to do this with this, this with this, this with this, this with this. And I'm like, he goes, oh, I'm really struggling, like back left flags. Fucking bullshit. Just learn to adapt. Like, learn to understand. Go out on the golf course, hit your tee shot, then do stuff like that, and then put some putts down that you need to hold. Accumulate it all into one. And he was like, yeah, but I'm not sure I can track that. So that's your problem, not mine.
So he's chasing a mold instead of figuring out how to use what he has to improve.
We only have we only have so much time, right, in a day, in a year, and whatnot, before it's whether it's like beneficial or not, right? So how we use that time, right, and how what we're trying to get to. So if this player turns around to me and goes, "Oh, I want to work a major or win majors, and I want to embed myself in the top 10 in the world," I go, "Yeah, we need to be at this number strokes gained total on average. You're really good at this." But he couldn't get his head around the fact of, I've got better in my driving, but I've got worse in this other area. He just couldn't get his head around it at all. Because in his world, it's like, if I box that, and I do that over a period of time, it's all going to fix its way into one. And it just doesn't work like that.
No, you can't go to opposite ends of a pole.
And we're a whole working organism, right? Mm-hmm. So I could have said what I said to him. His team didn't like that, by the way, because I was very clear. I said he hasn't got better. This is where he's got worse. This is where he's got better. He's got better in this area because of this. He's an overworker in this. He spends too much time ticking boxes in this. So if we start to create a task on the golf course that accumulates all of that into one, all of a sudden we chunk the time down, right? But he gets more out of the time. Because golf is played in an order. That's not going to change. It's not. With that, you're going to tee off, you're going to hit your second shot into the green or on a par 5, and you can either chip and putt. That's not going to change ever.
Mm-mm.
So we got to train in that order as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying you have your fingerprint, and you can. There are modifications that can be slightly made. Like if you use a finger, if you're going to put your thumbprint down, you can roll your thumb left and you roll it right, and it's going to get your full fingerprint. Maybe in a different way than if you just press straight, but you're not changing your fingerprint.
Yeah.
Unless you cut your skin off. So work within what you have and make that as good as you can. And let's figure out within that how we can improve and shave a quarter of a stroke off your game over the next 6
So we've
months.
just done some analysis with a really, really good player recently, and that we're working with, and I'm working really heavily with his caddy, his swing coach, and whatnot. Right. So his swing coach was basically going, feed forward, do these mechanics is going to hit you this shot, and he's going, that doesn't make any sense to me. I need to like feel it and like create it and stuff like this. So when he can't hit the shots, we go, okay, swing coach comes in, and what he can't hit this shot, what does he need to do? Gives him some intervention, right? So like a performance fix to go, okay, now you can hit the shot. Then we go, so I've gone like unpack this and said, well, what we need to do is we need to create combines in tournament play that are, I said, you're very good at, if you hit a poor tee shot, of gaining on your second shot. If you hit a really good tee shot, you're poor at gaining on your second shot. So for you to contend more in tournaments, because a brilliant chipper, he'll have his day on the green. When he drives it well in the fairway at the first cut, his second shot, his approach shot into par fours, his approach shot into par threes, also needs to gain, right? So that's a combine. So the more combines he has, the more stress-free golf he plays. How he goes about doing that, right, of getting to that performance outcome is that's his DNA. That's how he wants to play the game. There are some players that will play it by over excessive swing feels. He plays it by flag location and like trouble. That's how he plays the game. But that's like that is like when we look at it and go, these are your performance principles. This is what we need to do or what we want to do. Yeah. What's stopping you doing that? Well, there's a little bit of fear there. There's a little bit of fear there. We need to start to kind of, understand what that is. And then we need to actually create a design of practice that helps him implicitly learn that. So when he's going into tournament golf, he's not overly cognitive about what he's doing. He's just choosing more subconsciously.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the progression of, and to me, it's very much like a. I don't have kids. My brother does. Ian, you're going to have one soon, so congratulations. But what my interest is when you take a player like that. Like, okay, I have a young gentleman now that he's just turned pro this summer or this spring, and if we're working on I'm getting him to understand he's better off hitting a consistent shot that he knows that he can hit most of the time with his irons and then with his driver. So usually it's a slight fade with the driver, and he likes to play a slight draw with the irons. So, but when we get into different shot shapes or things of that nature, my idea, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong on this, my idea of the development of that is somewhat nurturing it in the beginning, showing him how to do it, and then being there for him in case he doesn't do it, to give him some support, but not so much that he starts to rely on me. If he starts to rely on me for that support, then I need to pull back and say, you got to develop this a little bit more on your own. And then slowly, if he's not at where he has a caddy yet, but slowly the caddy would be a support system on the course when it's time to hit that shot. And then eventually the goal is that he gets to where he can hit the shot without having to ask anybody, I'm going to hit this shot, is what the goal is to get to in let's say a final round scenario. Is that flawed, or am I missing something? And the way I use a child analogy is, your parents are there for you when you're young, right? They give you shelter, a place to live, your dinner's on the table. As you go away to school, maybe they're supplying the finances for you to do so. And then once you graduate and you go get a job, okay, now you're on your own. They're always there for you to call for advice and for help on how to work through situations. But that has always kind of been my thought process of developing somebody. And I just happen to use a mini tour player, but it would be a longer process with a 15 handicap, maybe a shorter process with somewhat of a better player. But is that on the right track, or is that
no? There's a very accurate framework in that. Is that when you have a relationship with a new player, right? It's a teaching environment. A lot of the time, it's like, you helping them with certain things that they need to do. It's very do this, do this, do this, right? And then it goes into a coaching environment where it's more like, what are you doing here? How are you doing this? What's the reason of that? What's the reason of that? Then it becomes a facilitator environment. They come to you going, well, I know what I'm doing here. I've looked at my stats there. This is the thing. Can you help me create some sort of environment that's going to help me? And it's just this different hats in one continuous role, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think what you're talking about there is that it's absolutely bang on, because our job is in anyone that we are not the people in the arena doing it. We cannot be there with them. So if we're not seeing transfer of those things, then we are not doing our job.
Well, as we talked earlier about the tour level coaches, where the ego has gotten to such a point, it gets in the way. I see, again, this is easy for me to say because I don't have kids, but friends of mine have had kids, and a lot of times I will see them doing things that, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am in certain situations, that they're doing things that actually work against their child learning what they need to learn at any particular time. I have 2 dogs, so I'll use that analogy that my girlfriend and I have 2 dogs, and I've told her many times, I said, you shouldn't do that because you're going to baby the dog and it's not going to work to their benefit as far as the long term.
But Pete, even in the short term, right? So last week I was at a tournament. I had 2 players there. I watched them play in round 1. Okay, we'd had discussions about what we're trying to do and whatnot. I watched them like open eyes, open hearted, seeing what's going on. We then had discussions after, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some hardcore discussions and whatnot, and then you watch what's happening on day 2, right? So it's like a halftime intervention at like an American football game or a basketball game or a football game or whatever, right? But if you don't watch that, if you're not there, experience what, like, you're half-assing it. So somebody turn around to me as a swing coach on the European tour or the PGA tour that's not watching their player out in the performance environment, they're doing half a job.
Yeah, I never understand that. I can't even imagine like Bill Belichick just not being at a Patriots game and then going and running training on the Tuesday. The guys would be like, you weren't even there. I don't.
Exactly.
So
what the hell is that about?
Literally, my academy this summer, I'm overstaffing my academy. So twice a week, I'm going to be on the road watching my kids play. I'll video them as they're on the course, and then I'll put it in the coach now, and I'll be like, hey, after you've had some time to chill out, just watch this video back. Let me know about your focus. Hey, this is what, and I'll do organized feedback. Like, this is what I saw. This is what I was led to believe by what I've seen. But I need you to tell me if I'm right or wrong so I can help you. And the kids are astonished that I'm there. And the parents are like, just, wow, you go to tournaments and you support the kids. I'm like, how can I not?
Right. It's like, no shit, I'm supposed
how can
to.
I
That's
not?
what I'm supposed to do.
You want me to just video his swing on the golf range and tell you where the club needs to be? Well, that's a bit like learning to swim in the bathtub. Like, you can perfect your stroke, but when he dives in the ocean in that triathlon, whoa, we're going to drown. So we need to see him in context. We need to see what behaviors are emerging. And like, I just agree with Stu. I'm flabbergasted at, like, and to be honest, any coach I've ever worked with in this white, I worked with an amazing coach, a good friend of mine now in England called Mark Pearson. And he was very organized, very stats based, had a plan, and he freaking went and watched his guys play. And he stomped the 18 holes, and then they sat down and they debriefed. And then I was in the junior academies where we all go and watch play. And when I first started coaching in England, I would just naturally went and watch the kids play, and then I would build training sessions around what I observed. I just don't know how you can.
Like Pete, I've asked people, like really, really high accredited coaches that have been to 3 Rugby World Cups, have been to Olympics in multiple sports, been to umpteen Grand Slams, ATP tournaments with like tennis and whatnot. And when I tell them this, right, that the coaches in golf or the teachers in golf don't watch on the golf course, they are just, I mean, it's an absolute astoundment. Like they just can't get their head around it at all
My
because they understand transfer. That's the difference as well.
It's eye opening. I had one gentleman. He qualified for the pub links, and I went and caddied for him. That was, I think, in Kansas a number of years ago, and got to watch. And he was playing very well, and he got to the final 9, and he just melted down. And I gave him. I mean, he missed getting to the match play. He missed qualifying by 1 or 2, and he went like the last 4 holes. He made 2 doubles and a triple or something like that. I let him blow off his steam, and afterwards, I knew it was coming. I mean, he said, "What the hell happened?" I said, "Well, I mean, now if I wasn't there, I would have never have known what happened. I don't know. Maybe did you hit a couple bad shots? Did you chunk it? Did you get nervous?" But I mean, being there, I knew that leading up to those holes where he blew up, he was trying to hold on. And like Ian, like you said when we were coming on earlier, it's like you're trying to hold on to sand. Right? He got so far ahead of himself. He realized he was there and he was trying to hold on to sand instead of playing what was in front of him, focusing on that and not focusing on, oh my God, I'm gonna make the match play and I'm playing good. I got a chance. He got so far ahead of himself, and I mean, I basically had to tell him. I said, look, what happened to you is normal, whether you believe it or not. It happens to a lot of people. So don't beat yourself up too much. It just shows that there's something that you need to improve on. Now here's, in my opinion, what I observed and what I think you did. It's going on inside your gut. It's going on inside your head. You're the only one that can confirm if I'm correct or not. You don't even have to answer my question if I was. You chew on that for a while, and when we get back next week, take some time off and then get back with me, and we'll start. You tell me if I was right, and then based off what you tell me was happening, then we know what we need to improve going forward. So that's kind of how I work through those things with Satan. But to 100% to your point, if you're not there, how the hell do you know?
You can only make assumptions, and assumptions are never good foundations to base coaching off.
But I think that's the big thing that I say we look at from this podcast. Like one message just for people to take away is like, if you're a coach and whatnot, make time to go and watch your player play. Put them on an annual retainer program, or rather than just like just an hourly kind of sort of like transactional kind of arrangement. Show that you care, give them a little bit of kind of, because they're committing to you, give them a little bit more commitment as well. And I think that just goes a long way. I think we've gotten away too much in golf with being lazy, excuse my language, but in the sense of like just being on the range, just like, oh yeah, that's done, go off. Nah, that's just nowhere near where we need to be. And I've been there as well, Pete. That's the thing. So I'm coming at it from a place of being there. I've been that golf coach, right? So I feel like I can talk about this because I've been that person, and it's just not right. It's ethically not right. And if we want these people to, especially at the high level, man, we got to go and watch them. Got to go and watch them.
Well, I mean, at a bare minimum, that they know that you're there and supporting them, and they're going through that where they're exposing themselves emotionally, physically, and mentally, putting themselves out there. They're as uncomfortable as they possibly can be, which we talked about last time. If you want to play at this level, here's the list of shit that you better get used to. And if you're not willing to do that, then save your time and
I'll
money.
stick,
because
I'll
you're gonna be
stick to
miserable.
coaching. I couldn't think of anything worse. I could think of things
Right,
worse.
so-
That's not true. But
These are the things you got to deal with. If you want to do it, we got to learn to deal with these.
Yes, there's no way around. There's no
Nope.
shortcut.
No, there isn't.
I don't care how much talent you have. If you want to play elite, this is the gauntlet that you have to go through.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, and helping them through that. I mean, there's a bond that gets developed. That helps. There's more trust developed. They know that you're behind them. They know that you're there supporting them. I don't see anything bad that can come from that.
I get paid by an SEC college team, and
well, I mean, and to Ian, to not to promote you too much, but I mean, I've watched you out there with students. I've watched you spend the time. I've watched you follow. When we try to get together on the first podcast, he's like, I got to go watch this young lady I'm working with. I'm going to go watch her play. She's playing this tournament.
Yeah,
I can fit you in here.
I literally. This is based on what you last said, because I think what the last sentence you gave was an amazing synopsis. So I went and I worked with a college team. I'd worked remotely with them. I'd designed practice with them. I'd had Zoom calls with 8 out of the 10 players. I went and watched them play. I sat in the team room before. I got to know them. I sat in the team room after. On the second day, I think they played pretty well on the second day. They climbed the leaderboard. I sat after. I joined in the celebrations. I got to know each and every one of them. I took notes. And I didn't get paid one extra penny for that. I did it because I knew it was going to make me a more effective coach. And every single session I've had since then has been way more effective because I've seen them play. I know who they are. I know who ride that emotional roller coaster. I know who get demotivated. I know whose body language is bad. I know who struggles to engage in the process. I know in the team room, the dynamics of the different people. Like, I saw it. So I chose to do that to become more of an effective coach. So I think if you want to coach, but that involves like watching players and seeing them play and being there as a support system and, you know, educating the people around them that are watching them play as well.
And if you can't do that, you're just a giver of information. Basically, you're a teacher and you're giving information over, and that's okay as well, right? That's just, if that's what you feel is necessary. But a team, for me, can't just have that individual and nothing else. They need to have some form of coach in there to able to manage all that information that goes on.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're paying you for, the whole thing. They're not paying you just to. Well, if they're paying you to agree with them, I would question whether you should be working with them or not. You're not. I will not ever take on a student that wants me as a yes man. I'm not here to do that. Some of the things I'm going to tell you, you're not going to like. That's, if you like them, you already be comfortable with them. If you're comfortable, you're already good at it. So you wouldn't be coming to me if you were already good at everything you needed to be.
Yeah.
What? All right. So this it's supposed to be rapid fire and it's emergency 9, but since there's 2 of you and there's always laughter and banter, you got a few minutes.
Yeah. I have to. I nearly had the battery die. I'm recharging the battery, but I do have to go coach. So this would be a perfect time to wrap it up. So yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
All right, you're both from Europe, so this is as much emotional question and fun one for you guys as it would be for me. You're on the Ryder Cup. You walk into the first tee. What song are they playing?
I'll go with the
Avicii Levels.
Rocky theme tune.
That's right. You ready to slug it out?
Well, Stu's actually done that. So you can take his answer.
It's not my song though, bro. Like
I was sat in the stands watching him on the first tee, so we can give him that one. Let's go.
All right. If you could sit on a bench for an hour and talk to anybody throughout history, who would it be?
Ooh. Gosh.
Oh man.
This is why I renamed it Emergency 9 and not Rapid Fire, because it does make you think.
Okay.
But it's fun.
Yeah. Gandhi.
Anybody in history?
All right.
I have loads more.
Well, don't give him any because he might steal.
Does it need context though, or just like?
No, it
like,
can be. You just want to talk to somebody. Just pick their brain for an hour. Anybody that you could think of, you want to pick their brain.
My grandfather, because he died when I was 3 years of age, so I'd like to sit down with him and like pick his brains about, yeah, nothing other than just his family and stuff like that. So nothing golf related.
When you're playing golf and you hit a shot really crooked, not that it happens often, what's your go-to word?
Mine would be, Stu's sworn enough. I'd probably be like, fuck's sake. That's my go-to with everything when it doesn't go my way.
Oh man, I've gone past that. It doesn't bother me anymore. To be honest, I'm not. I like when I was playing, probably. Yeah, just more like, what the fuck are you doing? Like that type.
I'm right there with you. Okay, you guys both being from the UK. Best James Bond. Who played the best James Bond?
Oh, yeah, it's Sean Connery.
Man, I like Daniel Craig. I think he, like, if you read the Ian Fleming books of what Bond is, he is more of the clinical, cold-hearted ass assassin. And
look at this guy.
James...
This guy can even give an evidence-based freaking answer.
but Ian Fleming's James Bond was a cold. He wasn't a cheese ball. He's a cold-hearted assassin. That's what he was. That's why I like Daniel Craig.
I got to be honest. I'm not. I'm more of a Jack Bauer guy. I think I'm more in the American culture, to be honest.
Let's see. You walk in a casino. What's the first game you're going to play?
Roulette for me.
Yeah, same. Because I'm too. Can't really do that wrong. The other ones I like
the randomness to it in a lot of respect.
The other ones, like when I ask the dealer, hit, and the dealer,
you need skills for the other ones.
Yeah, you need to know the rules for the other ones.
Let's see. Would you rather live 100 years in the past or 100 years in the future?
I mean, if I lived 100 years in the past, I'd start buying Bitcoin in about 2000 and whatever, and then I can sell it all into the time machine to go to the future.
Yeah, we'd be like Biff of Back to the Future. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's what always comes to mind.
Definitely the past. Definitely the past.
Yep.
You see,
mine actually. No, the past, knowing what you know now. That's
right.
Yeah. So I agree with Stu. The past, knowing what you know now. But if you're not allowed to know what you know now, I want to go to the future. I think the metaverse and that, like, people are getting mortgages on digital houses. You can like freaking put glasses on,
which is mental, by the way. Like,
that's crazy.
Like,
it's
I
mental.
can't believe people are doing that.
I know there's massive dangers to it, and there's massive dangers to social media for kids that need looking at, and the impact on society it needs looking at. But then on the flip side of that, I'm like, oh my God, some of this is so insane. Like the flying cars, the taxis that are going to drive themselves. Like, I want.
Yeah, but do you remember like when in the Matrix when they're just like connected in those pods and just live in a whole different world?
Yeah.
Like that's scary shit. This is going to happen. Like people are just going to be wired in their house, just living in a different world.
According to some Joe Rogan guests, that's what we're in right now.
Let's see. Stock in any golfer over the next 5 years.
Ooh.
Who would it be?
Victor Hovland.
Ricky Fowler.
Stock?
Oh, he's going buy
low.
low.
Stock. I thought you said like
stock. Yeah.
Like you want to stalk them and work with them. Sorry, misunderstood the question.
No, stock as far as like a stock market. Who would you buy as far if you're buying them for 5 years from now, you're going to make a lot on your return.
Victor Hovland for me. I think he's the man.
Bobby McIntyre. He's got a lower share price. He's got a lower share price than Victor. I'm gonna sell.
I'll be fired, mate. You can start working with him if he listens to this.
I'm gonna.
Let's see. Best swing in golf. Talk a lot about performance, but as far as the best swing, who's got the best swing? It can be any men, women,
Yeah,
Any tour?
I'm gonna come from a standpoint that
Driver Rory McIlroy, iron play Colin Morikawa. Those two.
He's building a player that's 100 years in the future.
yeah, there we go. So like when I look at Joaquin Niemann and how his body works, like
Contortion.
that athleticism and just it's absolutely mind blowing to me how his body is so functional for that. I absolutely, because mine is the opposite. So I'm just always mesmerized by people that do things that are literally impossible for me. So wacko.
You know Joaquin Niemann, right? When I worked for IJGA, we went to play in the Sergio Garcia down at Champions Gate, and two of the players that we were down there with, Joaquin played in front of them, right? So I was always up watching him hit shots, and he was like number one in the world amateur at that time, or number two or something like that. And some of the guys like asked me, like Arjun and Saptak, and said they asked me a question of like, "What do you think of him?" I said it'd be the worst decision in his life going to college right now. That kid is a PJ Tour player if I've seen it, and he did, and he was committed to Southern Florida, I think. Yeah, South Florida, and he didn't get in there because he didn't have the academics. Went on, qualified for the PGA Tour, and the rest is kind of history.
I think in that tournament, I think he was 5 over through 7 or something crazy. He laid down on the floor when there was a delay, just breathing, chilling, stretching. Got back up after this delay, freaking won in a playoff. Beat Jorge Villar, who was another good player, went to Lynn University. Beat him in a playoff. Brilliant.
But now Sergio kind of mentors him a lot. Like they used to play like a lot of practice rounds together and stuff like that, which is pretty cool, I think.
Sergio's another one that didn't change his swing.
No,
I mean his dad, they modified it, but they did not let anyone touch it, which was the best thing he probably ever did. Last question: who's the GOAT, greatest of all time, golfer?
Tiger.
Tiger's the greatest golfer of all time for me. I think the greatest champion is Nicklaus, obviously, because of the results and the seconds in majors, but the ability to the shots and the golf that Tiger played, I can't. And I'm biased in that respect because I see it. I've seen him play all through my life. It's hard. I mean, some of the stuff he's done has just been a joke.
It's incredible. What? So, Stuart, you're working on a book you got coming out. You want to tease a little bit? You had a time frame it might be out there?
I've got a lot of things going on, so I'm in the stages right now. I'm writing another book, again a story, just a different ways to do it. Just to get people thinking. But I'm also going to do a professional doctorate starting in September. So we're going to do some research based on like what do we actually know what's going on, right? To start with, and then starting to do some research based on skill periodization of where the sport is going and stuff like that. So that's a couple of exciting projects there. It's going to take me a while. I have to get my head around writing academic literature that nobody can understand, but we'll start to translate that.
Ian, and you've got game like training stills out
there. Yeah. So
we'll have that in the links. What else you got coming up or working on?
I'm at KOHR Golf now in Natick, just outside of Boston. So been the director of the KOHR Golf Academy now for 15 months. Great team, great bunch of guys. Academy is thriving. Putting the game like training philosophy in at KOHR. And then honestly spending a lot of time educating the parents and then forming partnerships. Formed a partnership with Mass Golf, hoping to form a partnership with the local PGAs, hoping to form a partnership with the high school teachers, and honestly start sharing my education and the core philosophy that I've helped shape in the Northeast, and then
start to try and, I guess, the education I had with game like training, I did okay with it, but coach education it's not an easy world to crack. Like what TPI have done is pretty phenomenal. So once core is, I think the academy is pretty much a place where I'm very proud of it, proud to be a part of it. Bill McInerney did an unbelievable job founding it. So now forming these partnerships, bringing other people in and trying to evolve golf through providing education to high school coaches, PGA members, parents, just trying to shape that environment for everyone to thrive through our education is a big task. So excited for that. And then obviously having a daughter, Stu keeps telling me, like, keeps laughing